We'll start. Hello and welcome to this very special episode of David's Divergent Discussions. I'm your host, David Gray Hammond, and today we are celebrating Weird Pride Day.
Woo!
We'll just do some quick audio descriptions. So I'm David Gray Hammond. I'm a white male in his 30s with thick rimmed glasses, a beard, a lip piercing, and a shaved head, sat next to the famously rickety bookcase that I mention every time and still have failed to secure to the wall.
Literally, it's been like 6 months now, David.
Katie, would you like to go next?
Yes, I am a large white person. You can only see me from the shoulders upwards. I'm wearing a black t-shirt, a bright blue hoodie. I've got short, dark hair, which is kind of messy, large brown and orange glasses, and you can see like a kind of very sensual velour type, what do you call it, like headboard of my bed because I'm upstairs.
I'm very jealous. That's so cool.
Okay, Charlie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Charlie Hart, also known as Awesome Charlie. That's awesome with an AU. This is my first time on a Facebook Live ever, I believe, so thanks for having me. Bit short notice. So I'm a slim 40-something blonde lady in wearing a, what's she even called? Captain, no, I'm not wearing Captain Marvel, I was going to. I'm wearing Scarlet Witch red leather jacket and headdress and red gloves. And behind me is a mural in what was my son's room, which is now my office. It's unfinished because impulsive, can't follow things through. That's me.
Okay, and Fergus.
Yeah, so I'm Fergus Murray. I'm a white person in my 40s with next to no facial hair, but quite a lot of head hair.
Fantastic. Okay, so we are here today to talk about Weird Pride Day. So I think the best place to start is, why do we have a Weird Pride Day? I mean, there's a lot of different Pride Days starting to arise. Why specifically do we have a Weird Pride Day? Does anyone want to weigh in on that?
Shall I?
Yeah.
Go on, Fergus.
So there are a lot of people who are weird in a lot of different ways. And many of us have been made to feel crap about that at some point, including pretty much all neurodivergent people. In my experience, neurodivergent people are quite different from the rest of the population in a variety of interesting ways. So it's not much use saying, no, we're not weird, we're actually perfectly normal. At least that's my take on it. So in order to have autistic pride or ADHD or dyspraxic pride, you need weird pride first. You need to accept the things that make you weird. And in order to accept people who are different in a wide variety of ways, in terms of neurotype, disability, sexuality, self-expression, even culture, you need to not freak out about people being kind of weird. So that's why Weird Pride Day.
That's a really good answer, actually. And like, yeah, I see, the thing I always like about any kind of pride celebration, but especially when it comes to sort of weird pride, autistic pride, neurodivergent pride, it's not about like having a big ego and like, I'm super proud of myself. It's that refusal to be ashamed of who you are. And I think that's why pride in general is a good thing. And, you know, people often, I think, misunderstand this about pride celebrations of any sort, is that we're not there trying to say we're better than people or that our way of being is somehow more valid. It's just saying that who we are is okay, and I'm not going to be ashamed of it. Yeah, you know, so Weird Pride Day, I'm here for it. It's good. So let's talk about weirdness.
Can I get rid of what weird pride means to me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm making this up as I go along, so don't expect anything too slick. But yeah, when I was younger, I used to get bullied a fair bit for being weird and different. I'd get called square and all sorts. And this is just a massive screw you, bullies, bite me. Because yeah, now that I'm older and wiser and more comfortable in my skin, I don't want to fit in. And yeah, screw you. I will be my weird and wonderful self. I'm not going to dim my shine just to fit in and be basic and like everyone else. And you know what? I'm not doing anyone any harm, and neither of my kids and any of the other kids that are picked on for being weird and different. They're not hurting anyone. So let's live and let live.
And I think that's really important as well. You know, if you're not actively doing harm to people, why do you have to be a particular way? Why do we have this sort of normative rubbish that says, like, here is how people should be? Like, you know, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. Katie, would you like to weigh in?
What weird pride means to me?
Yeah.
I suppose it's the same as Charlie, really. Apart from I've always had that kind of fuck you attitude to most people. That's not new. Yeah, I just think it's, you know, when you're a kid and you kind of get put into schools and you get put into classes because of your ages or because of where you live. So like you have no choice in these people that you are forced to socialize with. And then as you get older, you get more and more choice and you get to be able to find your weird. So that for me, weird pride is very much like community to me. Like I'm a weirdo. Come talk to me. Come info dump at me. Come do all these strange love languages that other people don't understand. And I'm here for it. So that's what weird pride means to me.
Good. Yeah, I like the community aspect as well. You know, that, you know, we can all be weird in our own individual ways, but we can do it together.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when you think about, you know, even from an academic perspective, you've got research out there showing that community connectedness plays a major role in our well-being. So, you know, Weird Pride and Weird Pride Day, it's not just a celebration, it's actually acknowledging that community of weirdos around us are helping us. They're helping us feel a part of something, even if we are still fundamentally different from everyone. And I think that's what's important about Weird Pride Day, really, is you can still be a part of something without having to sacrifice a part of who you are.
Absolutely. It reminds me of when I went to university and joined the LGBT society. It's the first time I was exposed to a queer community as such. And yes, we came together because we felt different from the normative majority, but we were very, very different from each other, all kinds of shades of queer and weird and wonderful. And this is what I experience now in my adult life with the neurodivergent community and still the LGBT community. Our strength is in our differences from each other and how we accept each other.
Yeah. So weird, like, as a concept, it's difficult to really capture what weird is. I think, I don't know what other people think, but one thing that I'm always very aware of is that everything in our society has been dictated by the society we live in, and even what people consider weird is kind of twisted to fit this idea of this is weird, this is what weird is, and this is the box you fit into if you're weird. And so it can be a bit difficult, I think, when you're trying to embrace your weirdness for the first time, to really identify with it. And I think perhaps that's why a lot of autistic people at first perhaps do the whole, no, I'm not weird, I'm autistic, because we've been taught that weird is this very specific thing. And I just wondered if anyone could think of any examples of times where, even whilst trying to embrace your weirdness, people have tried to dictate how that weirdness should look.
Oh, that's a good question.
Part of it is that weird is such a big concept, right?
Yeah.
So most of the time, but not always, when people are identified as weird, they're not just identified as weird, right? People try to interpret that weirdness. So like when I was at school, you know, I got a lot of bullying from people who sort of, I don't know, like I'm not sure exactly what their problem was, but it often manifested as homophobia. At that point, I hadn't even really had any major crushes on people of my own gender, but I didn't conform to masculinity in the way that they expected, which, yeah, was largely because I was autistic, and you know, looking back. But so I don't know, like there was maybe some expectation for me to fit people's idea then of what a gay teenager looked like, for example.
Yeah, and it sort of raises it really raises those questions about how far sort of these normative attitudes really pervade through our lives, because it doesn't matter what your identity is, there is some kind of set of politics associated with it. There is an expectation of this is what that particular identity should look like. And for me, like things like Weird Pride Day, and then like looking at things like Nick Walker's neuroqueer theory, they kind of, to me, it's movements like Weird Pride are literally about breaking free of these ideas that who we are has to be definable by someone else's standard. And I think it's really important that, you know, if you're going to embrace your weirdness, the most important thing to know is you don't have to be someone else's version of weird. You can be whatever version of weird you want to be.
Sometimes weird is about following mainstream fashion, isn't it? And then when someone comes up with an avant-garde type fashion, that's weird at first, but then if it catches on, it becomes the new normal and normative. So I do wonder, if you look at the men that wore those big ruffs in Elizabethan times, like Lord Percy and Blackadder, who first did that, and did people think they were weird? Because suddenly they caught on everywhere, but then centuries later, they look weird to us now.
Yeah, and I completely forgot what I was going to say next.
Sorry.
No. I had a point leading off of your point, Charlie, and as I went to say it, my brain just went, nope. My own weirdness coming through there. Does anyone want to take over the conversation for a minute whilst my brain gathers itself?
I was just about to say, to add to Charlie's point about, you know, men or people who are seen as men anyways, all used to wear tights and high heel shoes, and now, you know, you've got people standing outside of drag shows being violent to people, and, you know, but once upon a time, you know, sorry all men, but you wouldn't be wearing tights and high heel shoes. So, you know, I
don't get that point at all. It absolutely baffles me.
Yeah, I just let people wear what they want to wear, man. Like, does it actually matter? And then in 20, 30 years time, they could all be wearing tights and high heels again anyways, and then they'll be like, oh no, well, I've always been wearing tights and high heels. Fuck off, mate.
There's a really interesting relationship between weirdness and fashion, right? Because by definition, if you're in fashion, then you're not being weird, right? But fashions change because people are weird. Like, the only reason that fashion is at all a thing is because people are willing to not conform with whatever happens to be in fashion at any given time. So, you know, cultural change comes about because people push the boundaries, they push the envelope of the culture that they're existing as part of.
Yeah, and also, you know, the way we dress, we can use it as sort of like a physical representation of the inside as well. You know, you can use your fashion sense to wave your weird flag. You know, I don't do it so much anymore, but I used to really enjoy doing that. I had all kinds of, especially weird trousers, really weird trousers that like kind of all
explain your weird trousers, David.
I remember one pair in particular. They were like, okay, do you remember in the 90s all those really baggy jeans?
I do, yeah.
It was like that, but it had like bondage straps that strapped your legs together. So I'd be like walking along, but my legs were all strapped together. It was actually a bit of a nightmare, but I liked the way it looked.
My teenager wears those now, and she looks awesome.
I mean, looking back, I don't know why we all decided sort of wearing 600 kilos of jeans was a good idea.
And it used to get wet, and then you'd have like that amount of wet
Yeah.
trousers at the bottom when you go for a puddle.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Yeah, and this is the thing about being weird. People don't tell you it comes with a cost.
Yeah. Wet feet.
I really struggled in my high school because we had no uniform. So it was like Mecca for the fashion victims, and really hard for the weird and different kids, especially if they didn't have money to follow the trends. So I suppose you guys are too young to remember shell suits.
Oh,
but in the early 90s, these crinkly tracksuits called shell suits, and the branded ones in particular were really fashionable for a while at my school. So the bullies that thought everyone should be the same, they would really pick on people that didn't have them. So I remember going to the market. I lived in Nuneaton at the time, going to Nuneaton market and buying one, thinking, okay, now they'll leave me alone, now I'll fit in. And the very next school day, I was getting, oh, look at her trying to fit in, trying to be fashionable, wearing a shell suit, but it's off the market. She's still a square, like poking me. And yeah, it's people like that now really make me defiantly weird and okay with that. And I'll wear what I like. And at the moment, I've got a real cosplay thing going on.
My
cat just pushed something off the windowsill. I think she wants to join the debate.
Yeah. we should really hone in on that thing about, the bullies thought everyone should be the same. But then when you try to be the same, it still wasn't good enough. And this is the thing when you're weird, and why you have to be proud of your weirdness. Because it doesn't matter what you do. Once you're weird, society makes some weird moral judgment, which they don't even realize they're being weird themselves by making that moral judgment. So there's like this weird juxtaposition there. And but there's this very strange sort of moral judgment, that if you're weird, you're weird. And it doesn't matter how much you try to fit in with other people, you're always going to be treated as weird. So why not just embrace it? Why fight it? Coexist.
I wish I had at that age. Yeah, if I had a time machine, I'd go back and do the suck it, bite me, basic bitches thing now. Yeah, but you have to get comfortable in your own skin, I think, and then shrug it off.
This ties in with subcultures, right? And that ties back to what you were saying before, David, about trying to fit in with someone's idea of being weird. Because a lot of subcultures are based around like, we're not like everybody else. We're all goths. It's like, okay, so you're rejecting the values of mainstream society, but it's maybe sometimes comes with a whole set of norms which you're then expected to conform with instead.
That's what I find really difficult about autistic communities, especially online, and how we've completely and utterly, all of us either can't fit into or just think bollocks to neuronormative society and the rules and the weirdness that comes with that. The strange subtext and all of this bollocks. And then we do it and we perpetuate it in our own spaces. Why? And I see that in LGBTQIA spaces as well. I was like, there's still a hierarchy there, and it's always the white man at the top. It's just, it's really so frustrating to be on online spaces, especially for autistic people, and there's just so many rules, and I'm like, my PDA does not like this. My PDA does not like this at all. Goodbye.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, though, because in the previous episode of this podcast that I did with Nick Walker, she was talking about, identity politics, and we got into the discussion that, okay, community is a wonderful thing. It is. But it doesn't matter what community you're in. If it comes with an identity, there are politics associated with that identity. And that's where, as someone who embraces his weirdness, I start to get uncomfortable. Because the minute there is like some need for conformity, my brain's like, why? I don't understand. And then I start getting like anxious about it and stressed about it. And then I start making social faux pas that even autistic people can't look past. you know, and
Yes.
I think, you know, part of Weird Pride for me is, especially Weird Pride Day, it's a day when we can embrace the fact that we're not all going to perfectly fit into the politics of the identities we ascribe to. You know, just because I identify as autistic, it doesn't mean that I agree with every single autistic person on the planet.
No,
Like,
quite.
you know, I'm my own version of autistic, just as you three are your own versions of autistic. And in the same way, I'm my own version of weird, and everyone else can be their own version of weird. I don't want to feel boxed in.
Mm.
There are some quite complicated tensions here, though, right? Because some of the things which people are sort of expected to conform to in autistic communities are about making other people feel welcome. Quite often, the people who find it hardest to fit into autistic spaces are people who are attached to certain ways of talking. So, you know, I see people who still use the term Aspie or Asperger's getting very vigorously rejected from autistic spaces sometimes, which is sort of understandable when you know about, you know, Hans Asperger's history with the Nazis and
the missed opportunity,
the
though, isn't it?
generally problematic nature of the word Asperger's as a, you know, the concept of Asperger's syndrome. But people are attached to it for not completely mad reasons, and people were still getting actually officially diagnosed with it until like last year. So
I was diagnosed with it in 2018.
Yeah.
But I've always just called it autism. Autism is, you know, it's not the same for everyone, because not all people are not the same.
I think this is something that you have to consider in communities, isn't it? Is that, okay, those norms are often there to try and help everyone be part of a community in a meaningful and mutually helpful way. But sometimes it doesn't matter the community. Sometimes in communities, we become so attached to the way we do things that we end up pushing people back out before they can really take a step into the community. And, you know, I think we have to find that balance, you know, especially on days like Weird Pride Day. We have to find that balance between keeping everyone safe, but also giving people the opportunity to learn and be a part of that community. Because, as we said several times this live stream, you know, we're all weirdos. We all come with our own little quirks.
We can all say the wrong thing as well, because we all have communication differences.
And that's the thing. And I know we're not talking about autistic experience here, but because all of us are autistic, there's just so many things that we wouldn't put up with neuronormative people, and then say it to other autistic people as if we're somehow autisticing wrong. No, well, I'm autistic in my own way, thank you very much, and you autistic in your way, and you worry about yours and I'll worry about mine, thank you very much.
There are a few people like making contributions to Weird Pride Day who, like, I know that some people have a problem with them, and they probably have quite good reasons, but like, how much do we exclude people and on what ground? I don't know. So I'm leaning towards being as inclusive as possible, and if people aren't actively doing anything that excludes other people, then they're welcome. More or less.
We shouldn't be gatekeeping Weird Pride, can we? Because the more people that celebrate that, the better.
Yeah.
Especially normative allies. if they can catch on and maybe teach their kids to be kind to everyone at school, even the weird kids.
I think that would be really good. You know, I think we've all got our stories of, you know, how we've been treated, how people we love have been treated by others just for being different. And I think fundamentally that's what days like today are for, isn't it? Is trying to actually say it's not okay to mistreat someone just because they're different, you know. But I wanted to discuss a bit. It keeps crossing my mind. So we have Weird Pride Day, we don't have a Mad Pride Day, but there is the concept of Mad Pride. Or is there a Mad Pride Day? Because if there is, I'm not sure.
I bet there must be.
Someone mentioned today that there is, and it was news to me.
Yeah,
I can look it up.
So I'm kind of wondering where does the crossover meet there? Because there's obviously some similarities between the two movements. Because I mean, I identify with Mad Pride a lot. You know, I'm not just autistic and ADHD. I'm schizophrenic as well. You know, so I find myself embracing the fact that I have elements of madness, and I don't mind the word madness personally. It's part of my weirdness. I guess some people might wonder, you know, with things like Mad Pride, is that not quite similar to Weird Pride? And where do we think the boundaries are there?
Is the Venn diagram a circle?
Yeah.
There's some middle ground called Wacky Pride or something. A bit nuts pride, crazy pride. I don't know.
So apparently July the 14th, Bastille Day, is also Mad Pride Day.
Really? July 14th? Okay.
Yeah.
Get that in your calendars, peeps.
Yeah, I'll get that in my calendar.
I'll write that down.
And then I'll do a live stream where I'm just insane for an hour.
Yeah, so I mean, it's different, right? Like practically everyone who is mad, you know, who is diagnosably mentally ill or however you want to see it, is going to be seen as weird at times, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Mad Pride takes a certain amount on top of the Weird Pride. Like you need to sort of own how your brain works, right?
Yeah, yeah. You see, for me, like as a schizophrenic person, I see the fact that my brain can just decide reality isn't real anymore. I see that as part of my weirdness. Like, you know, I have a brain that just sort of invents its own reality, especially when I'm exceptionally stressed. I can't for myself really pull apart Mad Pride and Weird Pride, because to me they're sort of a package deal.
I think when I get stuck in some of my OCD kind of routines and rituals and stuff, I can literally just be standing on the bottom step, spinning, turning, round, until such time as it feels correct for me to go upstairs.
Yeah.
So, like, if that's not weird, then I really don't know what is.
Yeah.
It would be nice if I could just go upstairs in a more typical manner, but that's not really how it works for me sometimes. So,
is it about tackling the stigma then of weirdness and madness and everything between and everything overlapping? And owning it?
Yeah. My perspective is that weirdness is a very broad concept. So neurodivergent people are typically seen as weird, and mad people are typically seen as weird, and quite a lot of other people are also seen as weird. So Weird Pride is like a prerequisite for pride in any of those other things.
Yeah.
And, you know, queer people, there's a reason why the word queer literally means weird, right?
Yeah.
Queer folk are seen as weird, and the subsection of the LGBT population who really don't like to be seen as weird and want to see themselves as perfectly normal are much less likely to identify with the term queer.
Yeah, well, because I mean, when you go back to queer theory and neuroqueer theory, all of that, you know, people who subscribe to the word queer, either academically or personally, tend to be people who are trying to subvert expectation. You know, they want to change the status quo, and then you have the people who don't identify with words like queer, who tend to be more normative in their attitudes. That's my experience, anyway. I'm not saying that's how it is for everyone. I wouldn't dare speak for everyone, because, you know, I'm not everyone. I know I've tried. The psychiatrist assured me I was not everyone. But, you know, for me, weird pride is like the umbrella that all of the different other prides are underneath. Not less than, but like you've got like different subsections of weird. You know, you've got your queerness, your neurodivergence, your madness. I'm running out of prides very quickly, but you know what I mean.
I think it's worth mentioning Black Pride here, because that was a concept before queer pride was like coined as an idea. You know, the people who were thinking about what the hell do we do about like acceptance and gay power and liberation. They sort of, you know, they looked around in existing movement for social justice and liberation, and sort of landed on pride. You know, there were songs like "I'm Black and I'm Proud," right?
Yeah.
And I think this is a place where I'd hesitate to say that all kinds of pride are necessarily sort of, you know, make sense under the umbrella of weird pride. But saying that, like, a lot of racism is like totally wrapped up in people thinking that folk from other cultures and with other, you know, physical characteristics, other, right? So as in, you know, not majority white European characteristics are, you know, somehow weird, like they don't fit in with the normative ideals of white Western society.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that actually, when you look at the history of the vast majority of pride movements that exist, they tend to have come out of people who were involved in sort of the Black rights, civil rights movements. You know, you can't talk about all these different demographics without considering every culture that exists, because I know, at least, you know, I live in Brighton. We have a huge Pride March every year. One thing that I've always been aware of when I have seen it is an aggressively white crowd. And it's like people forget that actually, like, LGBT plus pride, like, you know, all of these different prides started in the Black civil rights movement largely. So you can't forget about that. And I think, you know, you can probably draw a line from weird pride back to the Black civil rights movement when you consider, you know, weird pride has, you know, it's got a relationship with the disability justice movements, and well, we all know the history of that, you know. But I'm losing my train of thought again. I'm very good at this today. Sorry, you know,
I like the meanderings of your brain, David.
Yeah. My brain does meander a lot. It's part of my weirdness.
Like a spider dipped in ink on a map.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. Yeah, I think it's all intersectional though, isn't it? All kind of pride. Any kind of resistance, even if it's not called pride. You know, when you think about LGBTQIA plus pride, that was started mostly by Black trans women and Black trans women who were also sex workers. Like, yeah, I don't think there's any big undertaking in this world that hasn't been started by Black Indigenous people of color. Like, I just don't think that exists, if I'm honest with you. Yeah, I didn't have any more of a point than that, but yeah, it's all intersectional, isn't it? So, and the thing is, if you put minority stress in with weirdness and what, you know, being unsafe in your weird embodiment, if you will, yeah, being Black or a person of color is definitely high on the list. Being physically disabled, or like what people like to call visibly disabled. You know, being sex workers, being part of a traveller community, being whoever. I just, you know, I'm very aware that we're 4 light-skinned people here talking about weirdness and being openly weird. And I you know, and I have come from a weird family who are all undiagnosed neurodivergent people with mental health issues. So it was a safe place for me to be weird at home. and it was a safe place for me to be weird. At the scout group I was in, my goodness,
Yeah.
we were some weird kids, man. There's some
I've
weird
found
kids in the scouts.
places where I was safe as well, like amateur dramatics and martial
Yes,
arts. And,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was in Amdram as well. So, like, there's safe places to be weird if that's what you're into and that's who you are.
it would
There's
be
a
a
lot of
pretty
people
dull
don't
improv
have that
if everyone was
safety.
the same, wouldn't it?
It breaks my heart to think that there are a lot of weird kids out there who don't meet anyone who's like them, you know, throughout their childhood. They're just, you know, they don't find their kin.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm really glad we brought up this concept of safety to be weird, because there is a level of privilege in being outwardly weird. You know, I mean, when I was in my teen years, I honestly, you know, I lost count of the number of times I got physically assaulted in the street because I looked different, I acted different, I was a weird kid. You know, I spent more time in the back of ambulances in one year than I did at home, I think. You know, I mean, the town I grew up in was particularly horrific and full of people who were just awful people. But, you know, that was for me as like a cisgendered male white person. So I had quite a lot of privilege going on in that respect. And I was still physically assaulted multiple times for being weird. And it really worries me that there are people who exist at different intersections to myself who, if they express their weirdness, their life could be in danger. And it just doesn't sit right with me, because everyone should have access to weirdness. It is nice to be weird, even if you're not weird all the time. There's that moment of peace you get when you're like, I can just be as weird as I like right now and no one's going to do anything about it. Like, and there isn't anyone who doesn't have times when they want to be a little weird. Everyone has moments where they want to be a little weird, whether it's when they're on their own, whether it's when they've had a couple of drinks, you know. Everyone has weirdness inside them, but some people have either bottle it away because they think it's weird and they put a weird moral judgment on weirdness, or because it would be unsafe. And it just, like, I look around the world sometimes and I see a bunch of people here and I think perhaps you're such an arsehole because you bottled up too much weird. You just need to let it out.
Yeah, try to be a bit careful, because, you know, Weird Pride is about encouraging people to be openly weird, right? And to celebrate their weirdness in public. And not everyone can do that.
Yeah.
And it's really important to recognize that there are dangers in being openly weird in any way.
For me, sometimes I think, you know, you don't have to be doing things in public to be proud of who you are. Like, it's okay to come and stand in a room with no cameras on, no one else around, and just let all your weird out. And you can be proud of that weird. You know, I think a lot of people, especially in the autistic community, a lot of us have sort of public-facing pages. We will sort of celebrate our identities publicly, but it doesn't make it more valid to celebrate it publicly. You know, it's great if you can, but if it's not safe for you, do it in the comfort of your own home, where you know you're not going to, you know, be at risk for doing it. Just enjoy being you wherever you're safe to do that.
I have to remember that a lot at work, because I'm an out and proud autistic neurodiversity advocate in the workplace. But just because I feel psychological safety enough that I can be open about being autistic and needing reasonable adjustments and talk about it, it doesn't mean there aren't other people in any workplace that don't feel that safety. So I'm privileged because I work in HR, so I know the policies and processes from both sides, and I know my employment legislation, I know my rights. And like I said before, just because I'm older now, I've got to that stage in my life where I'm thinking, sod it, if this doesn't work out, I'll move on. I don't really care, like it or lump it. And younger people don't necessarily feel the same way. But the more of us that are comfortable, that do talk about it, and then the easier it is for others, because you can't be what you can't see.
Yes.
Exactly what I was going to say.
That's funnily enough what I was going to say as well, because I always think about LGBTQIA plus people who are in the closet when Pride is among us, and I just think you're still valid.
Yeah,
We still love you. There's still community there if and when you're ever ready for it. And I think that could be the same thing for Weird Pride, maybe, hopefully. You know, it might not be safe just yet, or you might not be comfortable just yet, or, you know, but it's here when you want it.
I mean, fundamentally, don't pride movements exist because it's not safe for everyone? And it's because, you know, that refusal to be ashamed, we use it to try and create a world where it is safe to be proud. You know, and I think, you know, that's, you come back to the intersectionality thing. Those of us who have the privilege, I kind of always think we have a responsibility to kind of do what we can to make it safe for people who are less privileged. Because what's the point of having privilege if it's only benefiting you?
Yeah, because kind of similar to Charlie, because of where I work. So I work for a disability charity, but I also do community research as well. So I'm always doing research with people or working with young people who are similar to me. Like we might have, you know, this kind of same disabilities, or we might be LGBTQ or whatever. But so I have to really tell myself that it's not safe for a lot of people, because you kind of get in this little bubble of, oh no, it's safe to be, you know, peculiar or weird, or, you know, what some people might call as a freak or whatever.
There's a danger in happy, clappy neurodiversity evangelists going and telling everyone to drop the mask at work, because in some workplaces they might meet with stigma and discrimination. We're just not there yet, are we?
Yeah. Or like you do it at work and it's fine at work, but you do it at home and no, it's not fine at home. Or it's not fine when you're out and about with, you know, doing whatever you're doing your business. And I was going to add a point to that, and I totally forgot what I was going to say as well. Oh, it was really interesting as well.
Yeah.
Totally lost it. I'll come back
Loved
to it.
It had twists and turns.
Put it on the map, we'll get there.
Yeah, stick it on the bill.
So, trying to think of where we can go next. You're just letting my mind meander, as always. We've covered quite a lot already, which is quite impressive. We've only been going for about 50 minutes.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Let's have a look at the comments quickly and
Come on, then.
If we have anyone saying anything we can respond to. Let's have a look at the comments. Oh, hang on. Now it keeps...
oh, David, I like you, but don't want to hear you twice, mate.
No, I don't want to hear me twice. You know, I'm proud of a lot of things about myself. The way my talking voice sounds, not keen.
Nah, mate, it's weird, isn't it? Yeah. I'm much more high-pitched than I'd like to be. Which I don't. I sound quite like masculine when I talk in my own head, but when I hear it back, I'm like, oh.
My husband, when moving from one sat-nav to another in the car, he got a new sat-nav, but left the old one plugged in. So he'd got this female voice giving him directions, and he said, I think Father Christmas misheard my Christmas wish. It wasn't that I wanted to be nagged by two women at once.
No. Well, there it is. Quick, David, share a comment.
There's no actual questions in the comments. They're all just sort of comments on our comments. Like, there's Helen Edwards was talking about the shell suits and how they wore shell suits. And also they commented on my weird trousers and said weird trousers are the best. And I'd like to really agree with that, because trousers are a seriously underrated thing. Like, you can do so much with trousers. Like, you know, you can be as weird as you like with them.
I do think the most comfortable clothing in my mind is a t-shirt dress, though, just a long t-shirt dress. And so this is one of the reasons I don't think clothes should have gender, because I really think that anyone of any gender has got the right to wear a flowy dress and have that comfort and freedom.
Yeah, and also pockets. Can I have pockets in everything,
Yeah.
please? because you wear what are called men's pajamas, which I've got on a pair now, and I'm like, oh, I've got pockets in here. Oh, I could put my phone in there whilst I'm going downstairs. How exciting. And then I wear other pajamas, and it's like, no pockets, because presumably I'm supposed to have some kind of house, I don't know, like purse or something. I'm supposed to carry around my house handbag or something.
Oh no, you might keep feminist literature in that.
Like, what the fuck's that all about? I just want to carry stuff without having 9 million things in my hands at one point. It's so annoying. Put pockets in things.
Comment there, Charlie. That reminded me of an episode of New Girl where what is it?
Oh, I love
Jess,
that.
Yeah, Jess is like, well, I need my handbags. Where else will I keep my feminist writing?
Yeah.
I haven't watched New Girl in ages. Love New Girl.
Yeah, like
bit manic pixie dream girl, neurodivergent trope, isn't it? But I do like it.
Yeah, and I will say that this is one of the things that some people do find odd about me, but luckily in the autistic community, it's completely normal. Once I find a show that I like, I will watch it on repeat for years. And then one day I'll wake up and go, actually, I need something new now. It doesn't matter where in the series I am. If my brain goes, we're bored of this now, it's done. Like, and I want something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're on our 15th or 16th watch of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
There. And there's like 13, 14 seasons of that. We'll watch that again. Lord of the Rings as well is obviously a big one in our house. I have a feeling it probably is in your house as well, David.
I mean, Lord of the Rings transcends everything. Like, I don't even rate it in my favourite films because it's on a whole league of its own. And the fact that Warner Brothers are remaking it, I am going to have a one-person riot about that because it does not need remaking. It stands up.
If they were going to remake it, can they like cast all of us in it? Because I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be.
One thing that always annoyed me about the Lord of the Rings film, and that is Orlando Bloom as Legolas.
Yeah, because that should be you. Yeah,
it should be me. I would have been a better Legolas. I have no idea if I can act, but I am confident that I would have made a better Legolas than Orlando Bloom. Sorry, Orlando Bloom.
Well, there it is. Oof.
Orlando Bloom, if you're watching this, reach out. We're going to have a Legolas.
You're gonna have a fight with Fergus. Do it.
I'll tell you what. If Orlando Bloom contacts me now, I'm never doing a live stream again because my anxiety will hit the roof. I
think I'd either be Samwise Gamgees. I don't know, or maybe Pippin. I don't know.
I would be Pippin. Because, like, I try really hard to be helpful, but I get too easily distracted, and it usually gets me in trouble.
Yeah, I think I'd be Samwise Gamgees. Yeah.
We could have automatic Quinn Dexter, I think. With Gandalf.
Ooh.
Make a very good Gandalf. Yeah.
He has the beard.
Yeah. This leads us on to a whole thing about weird people finding themselves in fiction, right? And it's like fictional worlds providing an escape for people who don't fit in the real world that they're stuck in.
Because in fictional worlds, the weird people tend to be the heroes.
Yes.
And that's really cool because there's one thing you can say is, weird representation, especially in sort of like literature, could be pretty good actually. Like, there's a lot of representation where I go like, I know they've tried, but
I'm strongly identified with Lucy from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and I'd have absolutely made friends with Mr. Tumnus the Fawn and the Beavers.
Yeah, and I really liked Jazz from Artemis by Andy Weir. Like she was weird. And her weirdness got her into trouble because she somehow ended up in a space conspiracy. It's like she took a job and all next thing she knows, she's involved in a massive conspiracy. I was like, that is my kind of energy because that's exactly what would happen to me. If I lived on the moon, I would get involved in a conspiracy by accident. Well,
I don't know what my favourite fiction says about me though, because I love Irving Welsh. I love Trainspotting. has always been one of my favourite
Can you
books
do
and
the
one of my
accent?
favourite films.
Can you do any of the Scottish accents? Yeah.
Most of the parts I know are very sweary because I love Francis Begbie.
Yeah.
So you can imagine. So, but yeah, I could possibly do an accent, but
Robert
it's not going to be
Carlyle, what
words
an
anyone's going to want to hear. Robert Carlyle's just fantastic in that film. He was so good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I loved him. But I don't know what that says about me. But I suppose, like, who can be weirder than, I don't know, heroin addicts? I don't know if that's allowed for me to say, but you know, like, it was a very strange cast of people in Irving Welsh books, just in general, even outside of Train Spotting and kind of Porno and the Skag Boys and all of that followed that group of people. Like, everything Irving Welsh does is really, really strange, but I love it. I'm here for it.
It's compelling for that reason.
And then even just writing the different.
Sorry, the first Weird Friday was on World Book Day brackets UK and Ireland.
Okay.
I think it's usually in the same week. I think it's always on a Thursday, maybe. So it's only going to be actually on Weird Friday once every 7 years, I guess. No, 4 years.
Ooh.
7 years. 7 years. How does time work?
Yeah,
6
and
years.
I liked how he would talk he would write in people's accents as well. So it'd be from like different characters from within the book, and some of them will have like really kind of harsh Glaswegian kind of accent, and some of them will have like a real Cockney accent and stuff like that. And he'd talk in it, and I'm just like, yes, love this. I love Irving Welsh.
Speaking of weird representation, has anyone here watched Resident Alien?
No.
You need to. Okay. It's on Now TV. There is an alien called Harry Van Der Spiegel. And he's really weird. And like, he is my sort of weird. Like, fantastic. I mean, he is slightly murderous. Who isn't?
Harry Van Der Spiegel.
Van Der Spiegel.
Right.
So, like, from The Mirror, if my German is up to anything, which...
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah, it's like he's like it's not a spoiler that he's an alien, because literally the first thing they do is show that he's an alien. Like, it opens up and it's just the alien sat there fishing on a lake. Yeah, he's an alien called Harry Van Der Spiegel, because no one can actually say his real name because it's in weird alien language, and it's like he's come to Earth for a reason, but he does all this learning about humans whilst he's there. He just does not. He thinks humans are weird as hell, and I love that, because I think humans are weird as hell. Yeah.
Speaking of aliens and weirdos and TV, Mork and Mindy. So Robin Williams, fantastic neurodivergent person. Yeah, that whole show was an allegory for how weird and different he felt. So he was an alien trying to fit into society and being quite baffled by it. And it was ahead of its time there, I think.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of you see, Robin Williams, he had some really good stuff for like the weird representation in media, I think. Because Robin Williams had that energy where it was like, I'm weird and I don't care.
Yeah.
Yes.
Doubtfire.
Yeah.
Anything that Robin Williams did.
So yeah, well, we've been going for about an hour, so we should probably think about wrapping up. Does anyone have any closing thoughts they'd like to share before we end the live?
Would you want to share about what's going on this evening? Might be helpful.
Oh yeah, that could
unless anyone wants to share anything before that.
I mean, go out there, be weird. Even if it's in your own bedroom, away from other people, just be weird. It's good. It's all good. Be weird.
I like it.
Own your weirdness.
So Fergus, do you want to talk about what's happening this evening?
Yeah, so I'm hosting a round of lightning talks, co-organised with Amaze Autistic Mutual Aid Society Edinburgh and ARG, Autism Rights Group Highland. KB will be co-hosting. We've got probably 6 or 7 people talking for up to about 7 minutes each about a weirdness related topic of their choosing. So people talk about their own weirdness, their weirdness in society, how they have come to terms with their weirdness and learned to express it in safe and constructive ways, that kind of thing.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you everyone who's been watching live, and thank you to everyone who is listening to the recording on various platforms. This has been a really fun episode of David's Divergent Discussions. Thank you, Katie, Charlie, and Fergus. It's been fantastic having you on, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. So take care.